"We all agreed you don't really belong here, and this place doesn't welcome you," my mother said. I had just spent 2 years saving over $50,000 to help my dad fulfill the one dream he'd buried for decades. A dream he gave up, to raise us. And for that I was erased. The worst betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it's your own family, the people you tried the hardest to love. If you've ever been pushed out of the very place you thought was home, then this story, it's for you. I used to believe every family had a favorite, but growing up, it wasn't just favoritism. It was a quiet exile. In every photo, every family dinner, every "we're so proud of you" moment, I was always slightly out of frame. It started small. At school plays, I'd search the crowd for their faces. My mother always showed up late, if at all. And when she did, she brought my brother's soccer highlights to talk about instead. When I got into advanced classes, her first response wasn't congratulations. It was, "That's good, but let's not make your brother feel bad." Okay. Birthdays were a formality. Mine were always combined with someone else's, or kept simple to be fair, while my brother once had a DJ and fireworks. Everyone said I was too sensitive, that I imagined things, but you don't imagine the silence after sharing your good news. You don't imagine the way your name never comes up when relatives list the bright future of the family. You don't imagine your own mother calling you exhausting to be around. The house was filled with small rules that only applied to me. Don't take second servings. Don't raise your voice. Don't try to prove anything. Even when I tried to give to show love, it was too much. I once painted the living room for my mom as a surprise. She cried, but not in joy. You should have asked first. You ruined the tone I was going for. But I wasn't unloved. There was one person who always saw me. My dad. He wasn't loud about it, but he remembered my milestones, encouraged my dreams, and never once made me feel like I had to compete. For his attention, he had this quiet way of listening, not to respond, but to understand. When I couldn't sleep, because of the shouting downstairs, he sat in the hallway with me. When I failed, because I was exhausted from trying to be good enough, he didn't scold me. He just said, "You don't have to be perfect to be loved." But even that comfort came with guilt, because the more I leaned on him, the colder my mother became. She didn't yell. She withdrew. She used silence as punishment. She used phrases like always needing attention, trying to play victim. You just make everything harder. And slowly, I learned to carry everything inside, to apologize for existing too loudly, to hide how badly I wanted to be part of something that never made room for me. I stopped expecting hugs. I stopped sharing wins. I stopped hoping. Until one day I heard my mother say to someone on the phone, "Honestly, I don't know how we ended up with a kid like that." She said it like she meant it, like I was some random result of a mistake, like I was the other one. That's when I knew. This wasn't about me being sensitive. This wasn't my imagination. I was not wanted. Not really. Not by her, and maybe not by anyone except him. So, I stopped trying to earn a seat at their table and started saving up for something that would finally make him feel seen the one person who never asked me to disappear. It started with a memory. My dad once told me in passing about a place in southern Italy, a little town near the coast where his grandfather was born. One day, he said maybe I'll stand there too. Just once. But life got in the way. Work, bills, kids, sacrifices that one day never came. So, I decided I'd make it happen. I took on extra hours, picked up remote gigs, sold things I used to love. No vacations, no takeout. Every penny counted. 2 years. $51,760 saved. Enough for a full 2-week heritage trip across Italy. Flights, hotels, history tours, everything personalized around his roots. I wanted to give him more than just a vacation. I wanted to give him something no one in this family had ever given me. A moment that said, "You matter. Your dreams matter." And deep down, I hoped, if I did this, maybe they'd see me differently. Maybe this would finally bring us together. I planned it all in secret. I worked with a travel historian, found the actual registry with his great-grandfather's name, mapped out the old neighborhood, booked a local interpreter, arranged a family cooking session in the same town his grandmother left behind. Every detail, thought out with care, down to a journal I handmade with old family photos restored and printed one for each day of the trip. I even reserved one extra seat, just in case my mom might want to come. Because no matter how much she hurt me, I still wanted this to be a healing moment for us all. When I told Dad, his eyes welled up. He covered his mouth and shook his head. No one's ever done anything like this for me. He hugged me like he hadn't in years, not just with his arms, with his soul. He asked if the whole family would come. I said, "If they want to." He smiled and said, "I'll talk to your mom. I'm sure she'll be moved." I wasn't so sure. The first red flag came 3 days later. I overheard my mom on the phone in the kitchen. "It's ridiculous. A whole trip just for him. And why now? It's a power play. That's what it is, always trying to show off." She didn't know I was standing behind the hallway wall. My chest went cold. I told myself maybe she was just overwhelmed. Maybe she'd come around. I still hoped. That was my first mistake. Then things got strange. My brother stopped answering my texts. I'd try to show him the photo journal I made he'd nod, but scroll through his phone. At family dinners, no one brought up the trip. Not even Dad. Not anymore. When I asked him about it, he said I mentioned it to your mom. She said it was a bit too much, that you might be doing it for attention. Those words stung. They weren't even his. They were hers leaking through his voice. Weeks passed. Then came Dad's birthday. I arrived at the house early. A gift-in-hand journal, packed a card with the flight details. But when I opened the door, laughter echoed from inside. Balloons, decorations, a full cake set up. A birthday party was already happening. Without me, Everyone was there. Except me. I stood in the entryway, frozen. My mother looked at me calm as ever. Not surprised. Not sorry. Just cold. You weren't invited, she said. This was a family thing. I looked at my dad. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I asked barely above a whisper, "Did you know?" He hesitated, looked down. Didn't say a word, and that's when my mom dropped the blade. We all agreed. You don't really belong here, and this place doesn't welcome you, my mother said. There it was. The sentence that shattered every illusion I had left. I wasn't just forgotten. I was deliberately cut out. My gift, the trip, the journal, the 2 years of sacrifice was rebranded as manipulation, a threat to her control, and everyone followed her lead. Even him, the only one I thought I still had. I walked out. No one stopped me. Not even once. I sat in my car, hands shaking, journal on the passenger seat. I hadn't cried yet. I didn't even feel sadness. I felt rage. I felt clarity. I felt something awaken that I had buried for far too long. They wanted to make me feel small, unwanted, disposable. But I had something they didn't. I had the truth. And soon, they were going to see it too. I didn't go home that night. I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just away. The journal sat beside me on the passenger seat like a ghost. 2 years of my life compressed into pages no one wanted to read. A dream now turned into proof of how deeply I didn't belong. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just burned. Quietly. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Dad. For a moment, my heart jumped. Maybe, just maybe, we should talk. Please. I didn't reply. Not yet. I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to see if there was anything left of the man I once trusted, more than anyone. He called again that evening. This time I picked up. Can we meet at the park, just us? I agreed. It was cold out. The sun had dipped behind the trees. He was already waiting, sitting on a bench, holding something in his hands. The journal. I approached slowly. You left this, he said quietly. I read every page. I waited. He kept his eyes on the ground. I didn't know how much you put into this. I didn't know you remembered so much. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. That word hung in the air like smoke, real but hard to hold. I sat down beside him. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then I asked, why didn't you stop them? Silence. Why didn't you speak up for me? He exhaled. Because I was tired. Because I didn't want to fight anymore. Because it's easier to disappoint you than to confront her. I stared at him. You chose peace with a liar over truth with your own child. He didn't deny it. And that broke something in me. But I wasn't done. Did you know she told people I planned the trip to control you, that I was trying to buy your love?" He looked shocked. "No. She said you were making it all about yourself, that you didn't ask anyone if they wanted to come." I laughed bitterly. She ignored every message, every call. I even printed her a separate itinerary, left it on the kitchen table. She never acknowledged it. She made sure I'd look selfish, like always. His face fell. She told Tyler I was going to cancel the party if no one came with me, that I was threatening to ruin Dad's birthday. I watched as his world started to shift, all the threads she pulled, all the lies she wove, coming undone. I thought I was doing something beautiful, I said. Turns out it was just ammunition for her. He swallowed hard. She told me, "You said you didn't want her there." I shook my head. What I didn't want was her poison infecting something sacred. And then I asked the question I had buried for too long. Why has she always hated me? He didn't answer, so I kept going. When I was 5, she forgot to pick me up from school twice. When I got into my dream college, she said, "Don't expect us to help with tuition." When I got that first big promotion, she called it a fluke. And when Tyler crashed your car and blamed it on me, she grounded me for 2 weeks, even though I wasn't even in town. He looked like he'd been slapped, like every example tore through some blindfold he'd worn for decades. She didn't just favor Tyler. She erased me. And you let her. That last part that was the blade. He looked at me, truly looked. "I don't know how to fix this." "You don't," I said. "But you can start by not pretending anymore." We sat in silence for a while. Then I stood. "You want to come to Italy?" He looked up. "Are you serious? You said it was your dream. It doesn't have to be a family trip anymore. Maybe it never was?" He nodded, not eager, not relieved, just honest. "I'll pack my things tonight." That night she called. "My mother." I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. "So you've manipulated him too. Congratulations. Just know when this all falls apart, don't come crawling back." "No. I'm sorry. No. I misunderstood. Just venom. But this time, it didn't hurt. It didn't even register. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for her to love me. I was walking away with or without her blessing. The next morning, Dad and I boarded the flight. No big send-off, no family group photo. Just the two of us, 2 carry-ons, and a silence that for once felt safe. The betrayal had been sharp, humiliating, but it also cleared the fog. I saw everything now. And when you see clearly, you stop begging to be seen. You start choosing who gets to see you. We all agreed you don't really belong here, and this place doesn't welcome you, my mother said. But what she didn't know was that sometimes being cast out is the first step toward freedom. Italy didn't greet us like a postcard. It was gray. It rained the first 3 days. The language was foreign, and the silence between us was awkward. But maybe that was a good thing, because for the first time, Dad couldn't escape to work, or hide behind family responsibilities. It was just the two of us, and all the years between us. We stayed in a quiet village, tucked into the Tuscan hills, where his grandfather had been born according to the family tree I spent months digging up. At first, he kept conversations light. Food, architecture, weather. But I didn't fly halfway across the world for weather talk. So, on the fourth day, I asked him directly, "What are you going to do when we go back?" He didn't pretend to not understand. He just sighed. "I don't know." I nodded. "That's not good enough." He turned to me surprised. "You want me to leave her?" "No," I said. "I want you to stop acting like you don't see what she's done to me. And to yourself." That night he didn't sleep much. Neither did I. But the next morning, something shifted. He joined me on the balcony with 2 cups of coffee. No words, just a start. Then he did something small, but loud. He asked about my work. Not fake polite. Not, "How's that little job of yours?" But real questions. Real interest. It was the first time in years. I felt like his child, not a mistake. He was trying to manage. By the end of the first week, we were laughing again. Not like before, this was different. This was 2 people who finally saw each other without the fog. He told me stories about his youth I'd never heard. I showed him places I'd researched, vineyards his ancestors once worked on, a crumbling old chapel his great-uncle helped build. We weren't fixing everything, but we were finally facing everything. Then came the call. From Tyler. I almost didn't pick up. But curiosity won. "Where are you guys?" "Mom says you disappeared." "She's freaking out." I paused, then said simply, "We're in Tuscany." Silence. "Wait. What, you actually went?" "Yeah." "Dad and I are tracing our roots. You know, like the trip I planned for everyone." He scoffed. "You're being dramatic." I smiled. "No, Tyler. I'm being clear." "So, you're just cutting us off." "Not cutting off. Stepping back." "There's a difference." He tried guilt. He tried jokes. None of it worked. Because once you've seen how little they value you, you stop offering discounts. 3 days later, something wild happened. Dad got a message from one of the locals, an old man whose family had known our bloodline. He invited us to a small village dinner. Said it was tradition to welcome back descendants. I wanted to decline. Felt too intimate. Too awkward. But Dad insisted. "We're not running anymore." "Right." So we went. The dinner was in a stone courtyard, lit with string lights, and filled with people speaking fast, laughing louder. We were strangers yet. Strangely home. A woman who spoke some English sat beside us. Asked why we came. Dad looked at me, then answered with something I hadn't expected. Because I spent too long being loyal to the wrong version of family. And I wanted to remember what it was supposed to feel like. My breath caught. She smiled, nodded. "Then you're in the right place." After dinner, we walked along a quiet path near a vineyard. The sky was bruised with stars, and Dad said, "She won't change." It wasn't defeatist. It was honest. I've been trying to make peace with a person who thrives on conflict, and I let that cost me my child. I didn't say anything, just listened. When we get back, I'm moving out. Not to punish her, but because I finally see how much of myself I abandoned, trying to keep the peace. Tears welled up in my eyes. Not because I needed him to leave her, but because he finally saw it. He finally chose me. The rest of the trip was different. We danced in a street festival. He learned to order wine in Italian. I cried in a museum when I saw a portrait that looked like my grandmother. We took photos, real ones, not forced group shots for social media. Photos where we smiled because we felt it. On the last night as we packed, Dad handed me something, a new journal. For the next chapter, he said. I smiled. Only if you promise to be in it. No, he replied. We write it together this time. Back home, the fallout began. Tyler texted, Mom emailed. There were voicemails, some angry, some pitiful, none worth a reply. Because I wasn't in that house anymore. Not physically, not emotionally. And Dad. He kept his promise. He found a small apartment, started therapy, even began painting again, something he hadn't done since college. And the craziest thing, he smiled more. He looked lighter, like finally choosing truth over image had peeled years off him. Sometimes winning isn't loud. It isn't revenge in flames. It's a soft return to yourself. It's walking away with your head high, while they scramble to explain your absence. It's letting the silence say everything they refuse to hear. My mother once said we all agreed you don't belong here. And maybe she was right. I didn't belong where love had conditions, where loyalty was one-sided, where speaking up was treated like betrayal. I belong where my voice matters, where history isn't used as a weapon, but a map, where healing isn't feared but fought for. And this time, I'm not asking to be let in. I'm building the door. I used to think healing would feel like a celebration, like balloons, confetti closure, but it didn't. It felt more like walking out of a house that had been burning for years, and only realizing once you stepped into the cool air how long you'd been choking. I stopped answering their messages, not to be petty, but because they were still speaking in the language of guilt and control. And I had no intention of translating my peace back into their chaos. Tyler tried one last time. You think you're better than us now? No. But I knew I deserved better, and that was enough. My mother never apologized. She sent a short message once. We all made mistakes. I didn't reply, because not every wound needs a sorry. Some just need distance and silence. The truth is, you don't always get justice from the people who hurt you. Sometimes justice is simply becoming someone they can no longer hurt. I started filling that journal Dad gave me. Not with what they did, but with what I was reclaiming: my joy, my worth, my seat at the damn table, even if I had to build the table myself. There were hard days. Moments I wondered if I exaggerated everything. Gaslighting doesn't leave quietly. It echoes. But then I'd remember the look in my father's eyes, the one he gave me in Italy, and I knew I didn't imagine it. I survived it. And to you watching this, maybe you're in that house right now. Not a literal house, but the place where you feel small, unseen, disposable. Maybe your love feels like a transaction, your voice like an interruption. Let me tell you something no one ever told me when I needed it most. You're not hard to love. You're not too much. And you don't need to keep bleeding just to prove your loyalty. Healing isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. And sometimes that means walking away without slamming the door, because your peace deserves quiet. My story didn't end with revenge. It ended with release. The kind of release that makes you exhale for the first time in years and realize you never needed them to change. You just needed to choose yourself. So, if you're waiting for the right time to break the cycle, here it is. It's now. It's you. You don't need anyone else's permission to become the version of you that's no longer asking to be tolerated, but refuses to be dismissed. Because the moment I stopped trying to earn my place in that family was the moment I finally stepped into my power. And I've never looked back. If this story hit somewhere deep, if it reminded you of a room you need to leave behind, or a truth you've been afraid to say out loud, then maybe it's time. Leave a comment. Say, I choose peace. Let it be your first step out of the fire. You're not alone. Not anymore.